I don't know how much of school I'm going to attend, but I'm going to go in and talk to my deans and everyone and hope that I can try and balance it all. But I do want the experience of like game days, partying. I don't really care about school, as you guys all know.
If you've been paying attention to the news the past couple of months, then you probably recognize that voice. That's Olivia Jade, YouTuber and daughter of Full House actress Lori Loughlin. Loughlin is just one of over 50 parents charged in part of the U.S. Justice Department's largest ever college admissions investigation and prosecution.
So from what I've heard in the news, there's a lot of wealthy people that are paying for their students to be admitted into some of these premier universities that are otherwise very difficult to get into, and this was just uncovered recently.
Rick Singer, the mastermind behind the scandal, organized a variety of ways for parents to allow their students to get into prestigious universities such as Harvard, Yale, Stanford, UC Berkeley, the University of Texas, and the University of Southern California.
To pay $500,000 for a spot at USC is beyond ridiculous. It's aggravating for someone to not get into USC over someone who paid their way in. It's kind of like it's disrespecting every applicant that wants to go to USC. It's a prestigious school.
Parents paid Singer to fake athletic profiles and bribe coaches such as the UT tennis coach, who has since been fired, to get their children into his college on athletic standards despite never setting foot on the court. Singer also had parents send their children to testing facilities where proctors could doctor their results and had medical professionals fake diagnoses of learning disabilities to get extra time on the test.
It's kind of like I put in all this effort to, maintain my grades, put in a bunch of extracurriculars, and just some guy just paid in and pretty much didn't have to do all that, didn't have to put as much effort into going into UT, and it's just like, were all my efforts in vain?
This scandal is extensive, and those are just some of the highlights. But today we talked to 3 students attending UT and USC about their reactions to the scandal and how they got into college on their own merit.
My name is Sky Malsby. I'm a senior, and I'm going to USC for acting.
Hi, my name is Rohan Mehta. I'm a senior.
Hi, my name is Varad Tharad. I'm a senior, and I'm on the tennis team for Plano East, and I'm planning on going to UT.
I'm Abby Blasingame, and from Pesh Prince, this is Testing Boundaries. These students aren't just going to colleges involved in the scandal next year. They faced acceptance and rejection from other colleges on that list too.
I applied to UT Austin, Rice, Stanford, Harvard, Princeton, Yale, and Hopkins. And I was admitted into UT Austin and Rice and UC Berkeley. Yeah, I'm planning right now to go to UT. It just has a really great engineering program, and that's what I'm hoping to do in the next 4 years. I'm actually majoring in biomedical engineering. And then the other thing, of course, is that there's that cost component. So UT Austin is very financially feasible for my family because I plan to go to graduate school afterwards. And some of the other schools I got into, like Rice and UC Berkeley, are too expensive, even with the scholarships that they offer me.
I applied to UTD, UC Berkeley, MIT, Stanford, and Georgia Tech. Got into UTD, but I got rejected from Georgia Tech and MIT. I haven't heard anything from Berkeley, and I haven't heard anything either from Stanford.
It's definitely been kind of a blow to my perception of UT. I just don't really think it's fair that UT, as a public school that's getting funding from the state government, is using those funds to give certain people a greater advantage to get in than others, even though, my family pays taxes just the same as anyone else's.
Well, I was kind of disappointed that such a thing would happen at UT. Like, people just get it for bribery, but I still think, it's not, I'm not planning on, playing tennis in college anyway, but it's, so it didn't really affect me because I'm concerned more about their computer science department, which is what I'm aiming for, so it didn't really affect my decision all that much. It's just kind of made me, kind of disappointed, why would something like this happen, right? So, that's how I really feel.
Okay, so the way I kind of see it is that you would expect that a private institution of any sort should have like the freedom to spend its money and make its choices the way that they would want to do it. So like, for example, if like Jeff Bezos wanted to hire his nephew, then that wouldn't be illegal. I mean, it might be frowned upon in the company. It might even be like against the company policy, but it wouldn't be illegal. And so you may expect that, okay, UT Austin and Stanford should possibly be able to do the same thing. Stanford a little bit more since it's more private of an institution than UT Austin. But the thing is, it doesn't matter that Stanford is private and UT Austin is public. In both cases, both universities are getting a lot of money from the federal government or state government, through grants. And so all educational institutions, even the private ones, wouldn't be able to stay afloat without that help from the government. And so if they're getting money from the public sector, they're automatically, I would argue that they're automatically answerable to the public sector. And so to give certain groups a higher chance of admission than others just based on, the fact that they're donors or that they are legacy students just doesn't seem fair because, my family's paying taxes just the same as anyone else's. So Stanford or UT Austin, doesn't matter. It's still really unfair. I mean, I just don't think it's fair. I think getting into UT is very difficult, especially getting into the engineering honors program that I got into, and to be surrounded by other students who have the same merit is one of the main reasons why people apply to these honors programs and want to get into them. I know that, like, in terms of scientific research, because that's what I'm going to be doing for the next 4 years, it's as important to be at a good school as it is to be surrounded by other brilliant students who have great ideas that might contribute to your research. And to know that I might be denied of that because there are people that are paying their way into college, that just doesn't sit well with me.
I got into LIU Post. I got into OU. I did not get into DePaul, and DePaul was one of the top theater schools in the country too. So I auditioned for them. I auditioned for SMU at Unified. Did not get into SMU. Let's see. I did some kind of conservatory schools, like the Academy of Dramatic Arts, which I didn't get into because I forgot to fill out some application stuff. But it's all right. I did get into the New York Film Academy. I got into Arcadia, which is in Pennsylvania. Pepperdine, which is in Malibu. What else did I get into? I got into UT. I just don't know what program because I didn't send in my test scores. But I got into UT. Bribing, like paying your way through college, like bribing someone, I think it's just stupid. But like it goes back to the whole, cynical outlook that money is power, and if you have money, basically you can get anything, and it's true, It's just whether or not you get caught or not. And so I think paying your way through college, it's cheap, and it's a low thing to do. It's stupid. It angers people, And so like they deserve like kind of the fallout that the celebrities are facing right now, because like you chose to do a bad thing and look what happened.
When the college admissions scandal first broke, many people were shocked to see seemingly less prestigious schools, such as UT, included in the list of colleges. While UT may not be Ivy League, at a school as competitive as PESH, earning the top 6% distinction can be difficult and often requires sacrificing electives for AP courses.
Yeah, so like UT, it's very difficult to get into if you're not in the top 6%. Like if you look it up online, there's like a acceptance rate of 40%, but that's kind of misleading. Even in my own experience, I know so many fellow students that were capped this year, which is they were offered the cap program instead of admission into UT, because 75% of the spots at UT are supposed to be reserved for that top 6%. That's a state law. So with 25% of spots left, okay, now we have the bottom 94% competing for that, in addition to spots that are already taken up by athletes that signed and students from other states that are applying to get into UT. So it can be very difficult if you don't have that auto admission.
I just had to work a lot. Like I really had to put a lot of time and effort into my studies. I would stay up late at night just working on whatever homework assignments, studying for tests and whatnot. And I think that's reflected in my rank because I worked so hard to get there. But the problem is that everyone else around us are also like super competitive. They've all like worked hard and all, and it's kind of reflected in the competitiveness in our school. So I think it's really just hard work that made it where I am today.
In order to stay in the top 6%, it's been difficult for the last 4 years. I've basically been studying very consistently every day. I think part of the reason why I was in the top 6% when many other students I know that were equally deserving may not have been is that it's just an issue of information. A lot of people don't realize how important that top 6% distinction is when they're in their freshman year or maybe even in the beginning of their sophomore year. And then by then it's kind of difficult to catch up. So for that reason, I think that whole top 6% distinction is very difficult to maintain. It's kind of arbitrary and it excludes a lot of people.
We heard from senior Caroline Mott in the PSAT episode, but here's her once again describing what she had to do in order to achieve her top rank.
So in my junior year, I was in 5 AP classes. One of them was a double block, it was biology. And then I was in honors pre-cal. I took 2 math classes last year, which were AP statistics and honors pre-cal. And I would get off at 4:15. I would go home, eat dinner, maybe talk for a little while till like 5. And then I would stay up the rest of the night doing homework till whenever I went to sleep, 5 till whenever. And it just depended on how many tests I had. I never did anything. And then I would go out maybe Saturday afternoon, maybe Friday night. But usually every day Sunday I stayed home just studying for like 10 straight hours. Like I actually just studied all the time.
That's part of the issue. I mean, like a huge percentage of the class that is admitted into these private universities, like the very prestigious private universities like Harvard or Stanford, a huge percentage of that class seats are reserved for legacy students and the children of donors. So, of course, that in addition to the whole affirmative action issues that are going on right now, that makes it very hard for someone like me to get into a university like Harvard or Stanford. There are very few spots that are open. Even before they read my application, so many of the spots are gone to those students and to athletes and to minorities through quotas, so it's very difficult.
So at such a competitive school, how can students distinguish themselves in the college admissions process? Malsby, whose highest SAT score is a 1250, took a different route to his many college acceptances, eventually landing him a spot at USC, where the acceptance rate is only 17.7%.
Well, for acting, it's all about what the school puts on, their season, what they're looking for. And so maybe, I don't know, maybe if they're looking for diversity, I'm Asian, so it kind of helps. I feel that my SAT score mattered about 15 to 20% in my application, because I'm not going into an academic field, I'm going into an arts field. And so even at the orientation, I forgot his position, but the guy talking, he said that if you do get into our program, it's more than likely that we will admit you into school. We do have some sway into that. And so that's with all colleges. I didn't have the test scores or grades for UT, but I got into the program. So basically, the thing that kind of relieved stress was that my test scores necessarily didn't have to be the best, because I know that based on my audition and my application, I had a higher chance of getting in. And so for USC, my test scores were not USC material, but being an arts major, it helps getting into that school. So I've been doing theater since my freshman year in high school. That's where I started. And my sophomore year, I knew that my dream school was the University of Southern California, because they have a phenomenal program. It's very diverse. And so I heard about their program early on, so that's kind of been my dream school since sophomore year. And so I've still kept doing theater all throughout high school, and this year is the year that we have to apply to colleges and stuff. And so the application for USC and the University of Southern California, the School of Dramatic Arts, it was due December 1st, and I had to write 3 different essays, and plus I had to upload 3 pictures for take 3. It was a lot, but I got it done. And in February, I went to Chicago to audition for the program and the school. And it was like 5 hours long. I had to do an interview and an audition, and there was like orientation at the beginning. But I did my audition first in front of the professors. There were two old ladies, but I did that, and then I did my interview with the dean of undergraduate admission. I don't know. I forgot his position. But I did my interview, and he asked me about my application and the pictures I used in my Take 3. And one of the pictures I used that he questioned was the walkout we had last year. I used that, like, our school exploring, like, diversity and, like, welcoming everyone. Basically, that's what I said. And he took interest in that, and so that's what I talked about. And then that was most of the interview, and that was it. And then I just got my acceptance letter on the 23rd, Saturday. So yeah, it's a long process, but I'm really happy. USU is where I wanted to go all this time, and to go there it's kind of surreal.
Beyond his grades, Meta found another way to embellish his own resume and explore his passion.
Okay, well, so I think that the whole game of college admissions has to come down to things that colleges can quantize, because it's difficult to review that many applications thoroughly. So they need things that they can look at on a checklist through an algorithm to kick out students immediately that they know won't be accepted, and narrow it down to the few students that they want to read the essays of. So I think GPA for sure is one of the factors. SAT scores are one of the factors, and those two things, of course, were some of my strengths. It's part of the reason why I got into UT Austin, Rice, and Berkeley. But in addition to that, I think that they also look at things like national accomplishments, just the sheer number of national accomplishments. So on my side for that, I had national merit, national AP scholar, and I had my own patent. Some other students I know had they had won at things like the International Science and Engineering Fair, which also factors in, and that helps a lot in college admissions. But I think that really the distinguishing factor that helped me get in were, if I had to narrow it down to three, it would be my grades, my SAT score, and the fact that I had a patent. Me and one of my friends, last year we met this lady who had a amputation, and she grew up in like the developing world in El Salvador during the Civil War. She actually lost her arm due to a landmine. She was never really able to afford a prosthesis just because they're very expensive in the developing world. So my partner and I were inspired to create a device that would be much more affordable, something that could help those in developing countries. So we designed this prosthetic device specifically to meet her needs. And so ultimately we came down to a cost of $51.77. And that's pretty impressive considering that even the most inexpensive prosthetic devices will cost at least $4,000. And of course, my partner and I patented it. I patented our design after we developed it. That was one of the main topics in many of our essays. Many of my essays, at least. I can't speak for my partner, but I'm sure that was something that he did as well. Almost every school I applied to got an essay or a short answer that related to that experience.
I was happy. I mean, it was surreal. Like, yeah, that's been my dream school since like I started theater. You know, I've always looked up to that program. It's phenomenal. You know, they have a prestigious, you know, faculty and alum, and it's just like somewhere like I could see myself like thrive and kind of do my craft. And so when I read the email, I jumped out of my bed. I was like really happy. Like words couldn't describe like how happy I was. Like I'm still happy. Like I can't believe I got it. Like it's very surreal.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Testing Boundaries. Look out for new episodes on peshprints.com and make sure to follow @peshprints on Twitter for the latest in school, local, and world news.